My family always thought they knew what was best for me. Growing up, it wasn't a problem. They gave advice on school, friends, hobbies, just normal stuff. I appreciated it mostly. Back then, I didn't realize how their guidance would evolve into something much harder to navigate. It wasn't until I hit my late 20s that things started to change. I'd been living on my own for a few years, balancing work and personal projects. It wasn't glamorous, but I felt content. Bills were paid, my apartment was cozy, and I was finally building something for myself. But my family didn't see it that way. Whenever we'd gather for dinner, my mom would mention how I seemed stuck. My dad would hint that I wasn't living up to my potential. My siblings, successful in their ways, didn't outright criticize, but I could sense their judgment. It started small. Mom suggested I should think about moving back home to save money. I brushed it off, thinking she just missed having me around. Next, Dad forwarded job listings from his industry, roles I had no interest in. He'd say, "Just look at it. Can't hurt, right?" I'd nod, knowing he meant well, but I wasn't looking to change careers. I enjoyed my freelance work. It was unpredictable, but it was mine. One Sunday afternoon, I got a call from my older brother, Ryan. "Hey, can you come over for dinner tonight? Family wants to talk to you." That was unusual. Usually, our family dinners were spontaneous. Something about the tone in his voice made me uneasy. Still, I agreed. When I arrived, everyone was already gathered. Mom was unusually quiet. Dad seemed more serious than usual. Even my sister, Lucy, was there, and she rarely made it to these dinners. I sat down, and before I could ask what was going on, Mom cleared her throat. "We've been talking. We're worried about you." My stomach sank. "About what?" Dad leaned forward. "Your life seems stagnant. We just want to help you move forward." "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Ryan jumped in. "We put together some ideas. You know, just ways to help you out." He handed me a list. A list. It had bullet points. Find a more stable job. Move closer to family. Consider dating more seriously. Join Dad's company for mentorship. I couldn't help but feel a wave of disbelief. They'd planned this out without me, assuming I needed fixing. "You think my life needs an overhaul?" I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. Lucy looked sympathetic. "We just want you to be happy. You seem stuck." "I'm not stuck. I'm just living differently than you guys." Mom looked hurt. "We just don't want you to struggle. You deserve stability." I took a breath, trying to stay calm. "I'm not struggling. I'm just figuring things out my way." They didn't seem to hear that. Dad brought up a job opening at his company. Ryan talked about how much cheaper it would be if I moved back in for a while. Lucy mentioned a friend of hers who was looking for a roommate in their neighborhood, of course. I sat there, trying to process how they'd coordinated this intervention without considering how I felt about any of it. They weren't just offering support. They were reshaping my life without my consent. I couldn't listen anymore. "I get that you're worried, but I'm not asking for help. I like my life. It's not perfect, but it's mine." Dad didn't seem convinced. "You're wasting potential. You could do so much more." "According to who?" I snapped back, surprising even myself. "Just because my life doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it's wrong." Mom teared up. "We just don't want you to look back one day and regret not taking our advice." "Maybe. But if I mess up, it's my mistake to make. I'm not looking for someone to map out my future." The dinner ended awkwardly. Ryan tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but it fell flat. I left shortly after, still clutching the list, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Once home, I looked at it again. It wasn't just a list of suggestions, it was a roadmap for a life they thought I should want. I realized then that they weren't worried about my happiness. They were worried that my happiness didn't look like theirs. That was the hardest part to swallow. They loved me, but they couldn't see that I didn't need saving. I needed space. That night, I made a decision. If they couldn't respect my choices, I'd have to make it clear that my life wasn't up for debate. But I had no idea how to say that without making them feel attacked. All I knew was that things couldn't go on like this. I wasn't looking to hurt them. I just needed them to understand that helping me didn't mean taking over. The morning after that family dinner, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. It wasn't just frustration, it was a sense of betrayal. I knew they meant well, but it didn't make it any easier to accept. I'd spent years trying to prove that I could handle life on my terms. And here they were, acting like I was a project that needed fixing. I decided to call Ryan. If I could get through to him, maybe he could help the others understand. When he picked up, his voice was casual, almost oblivious to how I'd felt the night before. "Hey, man. You good?" "Not really. I can't stop thinking about last night." "Why?" "We were just trying to help. That's the problem. You guys didn't ask if I needed help. You just assumed I did." He didn't respond right away. "It just seemed like you were stuck, you know? Like you needed a nudge. A nudge is one thing. An intervention is something else entirely." He sighed. "We just want you to succeed. We hate seeing you struggle. But I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm not struggling. I'm just doing things my way." There was a long pause. "Okay. I guess we didn't think of it like that. That's the issue. You didn't think about how I'd feel. You just decided what was best without me." I could hear the tension in his voice. "You're making it sound like we're the bad guys. We're just looking out for you." "I know. And I get that. But there's a difference between being supportive and taking over." He mumbled something under his breath that I couldn't catch. "Look, Ryan, I need you to understand that I'm not angry because you care. I'm angry because you acted like I couldn't handle my own life. That wasn't the intention. Maybe not. But that's how it felt." After we hung up, I realized that just talking to Ryan wasn't enough. The whole family needed to hear it from me directly. I couldn't let this go unresolved. So I called Mom. She picked up, sounding cautious. "Hi, honey." "Hey, Mom. Can we all meet again? I think we need to clear the air." "Oh, did you think about the job your dad suggested?" "No. This isn't about the job. It's about how you're all approaching my life." There was a pause. "Okay. Come over for dinner again. We'll talk." That evening, I walked into the same room where the intervention had happened. This time, I wasn't defensive. I was just prepared to be honest. Once everyone had settled, I started. "I know you all love me. I know you just want what's best. But last night really hurt. You didn't ask what I wanted. You just assumed I wasn't doing well because my life doesn't look like yours." Mom looked confused. "We just thought you'd be happier with more stability. But you didn't ask if I was unhappy." Ryan chimed in. "We just wanted to give you a boost. You're talented, but it feels like you're not reaching your potential. That's your perspective. From where I stand, I'm building something important to me." Lucy, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. "We just worry you'll regret it later. That you'll wake up one day and feel like you missed out. And if that happens, it'll be my mistake. But I have to make it on my own." Dad cleared his throat. "We didn't mean to push. But it's hard to watch you struggle when we think we know a better way. I get that. But living my life according to your blueprint won't make me happy. I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing, even if it looks messy from the outside." Mom seemed to soften. "We didn't mean to make you feel small. We just didn't realize how it looked from your side. That's the thing, I'm not small. I'm just figuring things out my way. And sometimes that means taking risks or making mistakes." Ryan nodded. "We're just used to stepping in for each other. You've always been the independent one, so maybe we didn't know how to help without overstepping. You don't have to help. Sometimes just being supportive is enough." The mood shifted. I could tell they were processing it differently this time. They weren't used to me standing up for my choices so firmly. But they weren't arguing either. Maybe, for the first time, they were starting to see me as an adult, not just the youngest who needed guidance. Before I left, Mom hugged me. "We'll try to be better about respecting your space. Just promise you'll talk to us if you're feeling overwhelmed." "I promise. I just need to do this my way." Driving home, I felt lighter. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. They hadn't fully changed their mindset, but they were listening. That was more than I'd expected. I knew there would still be moments where they'd slip back into old habits. But at least now, I'd made it clear that my life wasn't theirs to shape. It was mine. And I wasn't going to let anyone rewrite my story without my consent. For a while, it seemed like they were trying. After our talk, I noticed small changes. Mom would call to check in without suggesting life adjustments. Ryan texted me just to share something funny, not to discuss better career options. Even Dad seemed a bit more cautious about giving advice. It wasn't perfect, but I appreciated the effort. Maybe they'd heard me this time. Maybe things would finally feel balanced. Then, a few weeks later, I got a call from Lucy. Her voice was hesitant. "Hey, can you come over? I need help with something." "Sure. What's up?" "I'll explain when you get here." When I arrived, she looked exhausted. Her living room was scattered with papers, and her laptop was open to some kind of form. "I'm trying to apply for a grant, but I'm completely lost. Can you help me figure this out?" It wasn't that I minded helping, but something about the way she'd asked rubbed me the wrong way. Like it was just assumed that I'd drop everything to rescue her. "Have you tried looking up tutorials?" I asked. "Yeah, but it's all jargon. You're good with this kind of stuff. I just need you to walk me through it." I sat down, willing to guide her. But I didn't want to just do it for her. "I'll help, but I want you to follow along so you know how to do it next time." She didn't argue. But after an hour of explaining basic steps and getting interrupted by her texts, I realized she wasn't really listening. She just wanted me to fill out the form and be done with it. I paused. "Lucy, I feel like I'm doing this for you. You're not learning how to manage it yourself." She sighed. "I just thought it'd be faster if you did it. I'm so stressed with everything else." "I get it. But part of setting boundaries is making sure I'm not just a fix-it person every time something gets complicated." Her face fell. "So you're saying I'm using you?" "No. I'm saying I want to help without feeling like I'm taking over." That was the problem. Not just with Lucy, but with all of them. They didn't see that asking for help wasn't the issue. It was how they expected me to do things for them instead of supporting them in doing it themselves. We worked on the form for another hour, and I made sure she typed in the answers, even if it took longer. When we finished, she seemed relieved. "Thanks. I know I can be a little helpless sometimes." "You're not helpless. You're just used to me stepping in." "Yeah. I guess I've relied on you a lot more than I realized." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I could see her trying to understand the difference between support and dependence. A few days later, Ryan called. "Hey, can you take a look at my resume? I'm applying for a new position." I hesitated. "Sure. Send it over. I'll give you feedback, but you'll have to make the edits yourself." "That's cool. I just need a second opinion." Progress. It wasn't perfect, but he wasn't just dumping the responsibility on me. And that felt like growth. Then, Mom invited me over for dinner. When I arrived, she was already cooking. "Just wanted to spend time with you." "No agenda," she said, almost reading my mind. I smiled, genuinely happy to just enjoy her company without feeling pressured. Over dinner, she brought up something that surprised me. "I've been thinking about what you said, about us always stepping in. I guess we didn't realize how much we were doing it. It wasn't just that. It's how it made me feel, like you didn't think I could handle my own life. That was never our intention. I guess we just got used to being involved." It was the most open conversation we'd had in years. I could see that she was trying to understand where I was coming from. And that mattered more than anything else. Later that evening, Ryan sent me his resume. It was rough, but he'd put in the effort. I made a few notes and sent them back, resisting the urge to just fix it myself. When he replied with, "Got it. I'll make the changes and let you know how it goes," I felt a strange sense of pride. For the first time, it felt like they weren't just expecting me to handle things. They were trying to do better. Lucy called the next day. "I got the grant. Thanks for helping me figure out that application. You did the work. I just guided you." She paused, then laughed. "You're right. Felt good to figure it out myself." That was all I needed to hear. I didn't need them to completely change overnight. Just knowing they were willing to try made a difference. Sometimes, setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting people off. It just means teaching them to respect your space and your effort. And when they make the effort to change, it feels like all the struggles to set those boundaries were worth it. I knew they'd still slip up. Old habits don't vanish instantly. But I wasn't afraid to remind them when they did. Because this time, I wasn't just helping them. I was helping myself, too. Setting boundaries once is tough. Keeping them in place is even harder. After those conversations with my family, I hoped they'd really understand what I needed. But I knew better than to expect perfection. Old habits have a way of creeping back in. For a while, things were good. I noticed small changes. Ryan called just to chat, not to unload his problems. Lucy sent me updates on her grant project without asking for help. Mom even invited me over just to bake cookies, nothing more. It felt like they were learning to balance care with respect. And I was trying to appreciate that without holding on to past frustrations. Then one evening, while I was unwinding after a long workday, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dad. "Call me when you get a minute." I wasn't sure if it was serious or just a check-in. When I called back, his voice sounded unusually tense. "I need your help with something. Your mom's not feeling well, and I don't know how to handle it." That caught me off guard. Mom was the one who always kept things running smoothly. "What's going on?" "She's been feeling dizzy. I want to take her to the doctor, but she keeps brushing it off. Thought maybe you could talk to her." I agreed to come over, trying not to let worry take over. When I arrived, Mom was sitting in her favorite armchair, looking paler than usual. "Mom, you okay?" "Just a little off balance." "I'm fine." I glanced at Dad, who shrugged helplessly. "Mom, it's not like you to just sit around. Let's get this checked out, okay?" She resisted at first, but eventually, we convinced her to go. At the clinic, I could see Dad trying to stay calm. He wasn't good with medical stuff. Usually, Mom handled everyone's health concerns. But now, it was on us to take care of her. The doctor said it was likely a combination of stress and fatigue. Nothing serious, but she needed to slow down. Hearing that felt like a wake-up call. For so long, Mom had been the one holding the family together. Now, when she needed help, Dad and I seemed lost. Back at their place, I made some tea while Dad sat with Mom. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't know how to handle her vulnerability. "She's always the strong one," he admitted. "Yeah. But even strong people need support. I guess I never thought about it. She's always taken care of me. Of us." I didn't say it out loud, but I knew what he meant. Sometimes we take the strong ones for granted, assuming they'll always hold it together. It made me think about myself, how I'd been that person for my family for so long. And how, when I finally stepped back, they didn't know what to do. That night, I stayed over to help out. Dad seemed relieved, but I made it clear this wasn't going to become routine. "Dad, I'll help, but we need to share the responsibility. You can't just lean on me every time." He nodded, looking a bit guilty. "I know. I'll try to step up." The next morning, Lucy called, having heard from Mom about the clinic. "Is she okay?" "Yeah. Just needs rest. I'm helping Dad get organized so he can take care of her." She hesitated. "Do you need anything? I can come by after work." That was new. Usually, it was I offering. "That would be great." When she showed up later with groceries and a homemade soup, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe they really were learning. Not just to respect my space, but to take on some responsibility themselves. Later that evening, as Mom was resting, Dad and I sat on the porch. He seemed more relaxed, probably because Mom was doing better. "I always thought being a good husband meant providing. Never thought about what would happen if she needed me like this. It's not just about providing. Sometimes it's about being there when things get hard." He nodded slowly. "Guess I got too comfortable with her always being the strong one." We all did. For the first time, I felt like we were having a real conversation. Not just about Mom, but about how we'd taken her strength for granted. And maybe, in a way, they'd done the same to me. The next few days, I made a point to check in but not take over. Dad called a few times, mostly for advice on cooking or organizing Mom's meds. But he didn't ask me to come back and handle it all. That alone felt like progress. By the weekend, Mom was back on her feet, a little tired but smiling again. She hugged me as I was leaving. "Thanks for being there. But don't feel like you have to drop everything next time." That was surprising. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "I know. But your dad needs to learn how to handle things, too. I don't want him always leaning on you. It was the most self-aware thing I'd heard from her in a while. And it made me feel like maybe, just maybe, we were all learning together. Setting boundaries wasn't about cutting people off. It was about making sure I wasn't the only one carrying the weight. And when they finally started to realize that, it felt like we were all stepping up together. Mom's health scare made something clear. We'd all been leaning on her for too long. Not just Dad, but all of us. She had always been the anchor, the problem solver, the one who kept us moving forward. And we took it for granted. Seeing Dad struggle to step into that role hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just that he didn't know how to handle things. It was that he'd never had to. Mom had always made it seem effortless. Now that she needed help, he was completely out of his depth. For years, I'd been doing the same thing. Shouldering more than my share because I was the strong one. When I finally put down that burden, my family was shocked. But now, they were starting to see that always relying on one person wasn't just unfair, it was unsustainable. The night after Mom came home from the clinic, Ryan texted me. "How's Mom doing? Need me to pick up anything?" I almost laughed. That was new. Usually, he waited for updates, assuming I'd handle it. "She's better. You could grab some groceries tomorrow if you're free." On it. I didn't realize how much that simple offer meant until I saw it in writing. It wasn't about the groceries. It was about him realizing I wasn't the only one who could help. A few days later, Lucy texted me, too. "Hey, I was thinking of taking Mom out for some fresh air tomorrow. Want to come? I'll leave that to you. She'd probably love the one-on-one time." She replied with a thumbs-up emoji, and I couldn't help but feel proud. She was taking initiative without me prompting her. It felt like they were slowly learning to step up without being asked. And that was more progress than I'd expected. One evening, I dropped by to see how Dad was managing. He was in the kitchen, clumsily chopping vegetables. Trying to make soup. "Your mom insists on helping, but I told her to stay put." I watched him struggle with the knife and took over, showing him an easier way to chop. "You don't have to do it perfectly. Just get the pieces small enough." He looked embarrassed. "She always made it look so simple. I didn't realize how much she did." "That's because she never made a fuss. Just got it done." He sighed. "I guess I should have paid more attention. Thought providing was enough. It's more than that. Sometimes just being involved makes a difference." We finished the soup together, and I could see him trying to absorb the lesson. It wasn't about mastering everything overnight. It was about being present, and willing to put in the effort. After dinner, Mom joined us in the living room. She still looked tired but more relaxed. "You two cooking together? Never thought I'd see that." Dad chuckled. "You didn't tell me it was this much work. Maybe because I didn't want you to worry." Her words hit differently now. All those years, she made it look easy, not because it was, but because she didn't want to burden us. Just like I used to do. That evening, I stayed a bit longer, helping Dad clean up. He didn't ask me to. I just wanted to show him it was manageable if we worked together. When I finally headed home, I felt a sense of accomplishment, not because I'd fixed things, but because I was helping them learn to manage on their own. A few days later, Lucy called. "You know, I always thought Mom just liked being the one to take care of everything." She probably did. But that doesn't mean she never got tired. I guess I just assumed she didn't need help. That's the problem with strong people. You forget they have limits. It felt good to have that conversation. Not just for me, but for Lucy, too. Maybe we were all finally realizing that carrying the family shouldn't fall on one person's shoulders. Later that week, Ryan invited me out for drinks. "Just wanted to catch up, man. Not about work or family stuff." That was new. We talked about random things. Movies, our favorite bands, old high school stories. For the first time in a long while, it felt like we were just brothers, not project managers for our family's problems. Setting boundaries wasn't just about making them see me differently. It was about teaching myself that I didn't have to carry everyone. And once I accepted that, I started noticing how they were trying to adjust, too. It wasn't perfect. Mom still had moments where she'd hint at me taking on more than I wanted. Dad still fumbled through simple tasks, trying to prove he could manage. But they were trying. and that was enough. Sometimes I still catch myself wanting to take over when I see them struggle. But I remind myself that part of growing is letting them figure it out. I don't need to be the fixer. Just being present and supportive is enough. They'll get it right eventually. And in the meantime, I'm learning to let them. A few weeks passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Mom was feeling better, and Dad seemed more confident about managing things at home. Ryan and Lucy were checking in regularly, not just on Mom, but on each other, too. It was almost like my family was slowly figuring out how to be more balanced without relying on me to hold everything together. I didn't want to get my hopes up too soon. People don't change overnight, and I knew old habits could resurface. But for once, I felt like the weight wasn't solely on my shoulders. And that alone was a relief. Then one Sunday, Ryan called. "Hey, can you come over to Mom and Dad's for lunch? We're planning something." "What's the occasion?" "Just come. You'll see." I didn't know what to expect. Part of me worried they were back to their intervention ways, but I tried not to overthink it. When I arrived, I was surprised to see the whole family already there. Mom was in the kitchen, laughing as Lucy tried to bake something. Dad was setting the table, and Ryan was fiddling with the speaker, trying to get some music going. I raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" Mom smiled. "We wanted to do something for you." Ryan called everyone to the living room. "We've been talking," he started, looking uncharacteristically serious, "about how we've treated you. How we made you feel like it was your job to hold us all together." I glanced at Lucy, who nodded. "We didn't realize how much pressure we put on you. Just because you could handle things didn't mean you should have to." My stomach tightened. I wasn't used to them being this straightforward. "We're not great at admitting when we're wrong," Ryan continued. "But you've always been the one to keep us in check. It's time we started doing that for ourselves." Dad cleared his throat. "We wanted to make today about you. No advice, no lectures, no fixing. Just a day for us to appreciate you without asking for anything in return." I didn't know what to say. They had never done anything like this before. For years, I'd been the one planning, cooking, and organizing. Now they were doing it for me. Lucy brought out a cake, a little lopsided but homemade. She looked almost shy. I tried baking it myself. No store-bought stuff this time. I couldn't help but laugh. "It looks great." We sat down to eat, and for once, I didn't feel like I was in charge. They passed dishes, shared stories, and made sure everything was taken care of. I could just sit back and enjoy it. It felt nice. After lunch, Dad pulled me aside. "I know we don't say it enough, but we're proud of you. Not just because you've made something of yourself, but because you've been strong enough to set boundaries with us. We needed that." I wasn't expecting that kind of honesty. "I just needed you guys to see me as more than just the one who fixes things. We get it now. Sometimes you have to say no to take care of yourself. I'm starting to see that." Hearing Dad admit that made me realize something important. Maybe they weren't just listening because I demanded it. Maybe they were finally seeing me differently, as an equal, not just a problem solver. Later, as we sat around the table eating Lucy's cake, Ryan raised his glass. "To Ethan, for showing us how to step up and take responsibility without losing each other." Everyone clinked glasses, and I couldn't help but smile. For once, it felt like they saw me, not just what I could do for them. Afterward, Lucy sat next to me on the porch. "I didn't realize how much we'd been leaning on you. I guess we just thought you could handle it because you always did. That's the thing. I didn't mind helping. I just didn't want it to feel like my duty." She nodded. "I get that now. You deserve to be part of the family, not just the one holding it together." As the day wound down, I couldn't help but think about how much had changed. Setting boundaries wasn't just about making them see me differently. It was about making me see myself differently, too. I had spent so long feeling responsible that I didn't realize I could just be present without carrying the weight. They weren't perfect. They'd still mess up and probably slip back into old patterns sometimes. But they were trying. And that meant more to me than anything. Before I left, Mom hugged me tight. "We love you, Ethan. We're proud of you." It wasn't just words. I could feel the sincerity in her voice. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to earn that love by being their rock. I could just be their son. And that was enough. Driving home, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just relief, it was acceptance. I had done the hard part, standing up for myself. Now I could let myself enjoy the family I had without feeling like I was carrying them. Sometimes, setting boundaries doesn't mean creating distance. It means teaching others how to be closer in a healthier way. And seeing them make the effort was proof that sometimes change is possible. After that lunch, I couldn't stop thinking about how much had changed. Not just with my family, but with me. It felt like a breakthrough, realizing that I didn't have to carry everyone to feel valued. And seeing my family make an effort to appreciate me without expecting more in return, that was new. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. I knew there would still be moments where they'd slip back into old habits. That's just how families work. But now, I felt more confident about speaking up when it happened. Because setting boundaries once isn't enough, it's about maintaining them over time. A few days later, Ryan called. "Hey, got some good news. I got the job I applied for." "That's awesome, man. Congrats. Couldn't have done it without your help on the resume. You did the work." "I just gave feedback." He chuckled. "Yeah, but I would have just given up if you hadn't pushed me to do it myself." That felt good to hear. Ryan wasn't just looking for me to take over anymore. He was learning how to put in the effort himself. It wasn't just about independence. It was about knowing he could do it on his own. Lucy, too, seemed to be finding her way. She sent me a text a week later. Submitted another grant proposal. Didn't need help this time. Feels good to do it myself. I couldn't help but smile. She was figuring it out. Maybe a little slower than she would have liked, but still, it was progress. One evening, I stopped by Mom and Dad's to check in. They were both in the kitchen, cooking together. It was almost strange seeing Dad comfortably chopping vegetables while Mom supervised. "Getting the hang of it?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. Dad just laughed. "Your mom's still the boss. I'm just the sous chef." Mom smirked. "He's getting better. Doesn't burn the soup anymore." They seemed lighter. Like the tension that usually hung over them had lifted. I didn't realize how much pressure Mom had been under until I saw Dad genuinely pitching in. It wasn't just about helping, it was about showing up. After dinner, Dad pulled me aside. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About not always being the strong one." "Yeah? I guess I just never considered that needing help didn't mean I was weak. Your mom tried to tell me for years, but I didn't want to hear it. Sometimes it takes seeing it for yourself." He nodded, a bit embarrassed. "You're right. I always thought I was helping by being the provider. Didn't see that helping her meant being involved, not just paying the bills." That was the closest he'd ever come to admitting he hadn't been pulling his weight at home. It was one of those rare moments when I saw him not just as my dad, but as a man trying to figure things out. And I respected him for it. A few days later, I had a quiet night at home, reflecting on how far we'd all come. Setting boundaries hadn't been easy. It wasn't just about saying no. It was about teaching my family to see me differently. Not as the fix-it guy, but as someone with his own needs and limits. Sometimes I still worry about slipping back into old patterns. It was tempting to just handle things because it was quicker, easier. But then I remembered how exhausted I used to feel. How I'd gone from wanting to help to feeling obligated. And I knew I couldn't go back to that. The next time we had a family dinner, I didn't feel anxious walking in. There was no sense of being ambushed with advice or plans to improve my life. Just a regular evening where everyone pitched in. Lucy set the table, Ryan cooked burgers on the grill, and Dad made his infamous potato salad, still too salty, but endearing in its effort. Mom didn't hover, just enjoyed being taken care of for once. It was simple, but it felt right. Like we'd all learned how to be a family without pushing one person to hold it together. After dinner, Lucy pulled me aside. "You know, I thought you were just being stubborn when you set those boundaries. But I get it now. You just needed us to see you differently. That's all I wanted. To feel like I wasn't just the one solving everyone's problems." She hugged me. "We'll try to do better. Promise." And for the first time, I believed her. It wasn't about perfection. It was about being seen. And now that they saw me as more than just the dependable one, I didn't feel so weighed down. Driving home that night, I felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Not because I won or changed them completely, but because I'd learned how to stand up for myself without losing them. I didn't need to isolate myself to feel respected. I just needed to make sure they knew where my boundaries were. In the end, maintaining boundaries didn't mean losing closeness. It just meant finding a new way to be together. One that didn't leave me feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. Sometimes, setting boundaries feels selfish. But when it leads to healthier relationships, it's worth it. And now, I knew that choosing myself didn't mean losing my family. It meant giving us a chance to be stronger together, without sacrificing anyone in the process.